power doesn't shout. It doesn't announce itself. It moves in silence, like a shadow. And those who hold true power often speak the least. This idea isn't new. It's ancient, and perhaps no one understood it better than Niccolò Machiavelli. Today, we break down the brutal brilliance behind why silence isn't weakness. It's dominance. We live in a world that rewards talking, opinions, explanations, constant noise. But Machiavelli warned, the more you say, the more common you appear. Words can be dangerous, not to others, but to you. They reveal intentions, show your hand, and give people weapons to use against you. The moment you speak too much, you lose control of the narrative. In The Prince, Machiavelli didn't just talk about power, he dissected it. He advised rulers to master the art of appearance, but to conceal their true plans. Silence is a weapon. When you don't react, you force others to guess. When you don't reveal, others reveal themselves. Control the conversation, not by dominating it, but by speaking only when necessary. Powerful people often say less because they don't need to say more. There's a thin line between being respected and being feared. And Machiavelli believed fear was more reliable. A silent man in a room full of noise commands attention, not because he forces it, but because his restraint demands it. Stillness makes people uneasy. They start projecting, wondering what you think, what you might do. This mystery becomes your advantage. Think of the most powerful people today. They're rarely the loudest. They wait. They listen. They strike only when it matters. Speaking less isn't about saying nothing. It's about choosing when to speak, so when you do, it echoes. Machiavelli didn't teach silence for the sake of modesty. He taught it for control. In his world and ours, the person who speaks last often wins. So next time you feel the urge to fill the silence, don't let them talk. Let them reveal. Let them underestimate you. Because power doesn't need to prove itself. Power is silent. The world doesn't notice the loud for long. Noise fades, but silence lingers. When you walk into a room and say nothing, people start constructing stories around you. Who are you? What are you thinking? Are you confident? Dangerous? Wise? They start to fill the gaps you leave behind. And that's the trick. When you control the silence, you control the narrative. Machiavelli understood something most people don't. Perception is power. Not truth, not even action, but perception. And the more you speak, the more you give people the tools to shape that perception for themselves. But when you hold back, when you wait, when you observe, you become unreadable, and unreadable people are unforgettable. In politics, in business, even in relationships, the person who speaks least often holds the strongest hand. They aren't playing checkers, they're playing chess. Let others be predictable. Let them speak their truth, expose their flaws, announce their weaknesses wrapped in words they think sound like strength. You wait, because power isn't about being seen. It's about being felt. And nothing is felt more than presence without noise. A leader who talks too much looks insecure. A man who defends himself constantly looks guilty. But the one who stays calm, still, and sharp, that's the one everyone watches and worries about. Because silence gives you the greatest advantage of all: ambiguity. They can't attack what they can't define. They can't outmaneuver what they can't predict. And they can't dominate someone who already controls themselves. Machiavelli didn't just speak of silence, he embodied it. His influence still shapes leaders, politicians, and strategists to this day. Not because he told them what to do, but because he taught them what not to say. So when you're in a room, or in conflict, or in doubt, remember this: don't speak to prove yourself. Don't speak to fill the void. Don't speak unless it moves something. Let others play their cards face up. You keep your hand close, smile, say little. And when you finally speak, make it count, make it undeniable, make it final. That is real power. Silent, calculated, untouchable, And if they call your silence arrogance, let them. If they mistake your quiet for weakness, let them. That's the beauty of silence. It invites miscalculation. People prepare for the loud ones. They're easy to read, easy to predict, but they never quite know what to do with someone who says almost nothing, yet seems to see everything. Let them underestimate you. That's fuel. Because while they're busy guessing your next move, you're already 3 steps ahead. Understand this: silence doesn't mean inaction. It means discipline. It means control. It means you're choosing your moment. And when that moment comes, when you speak, when you act, it will feel inevitable. Because power doesn't need an introduction. It doesn't need noise. It just needs timing. So you walk into the room, calm, composed, and quiet. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you've already said enough, just by being there. They'll feel it. They always do. Because true dominance doesn't roar. It waits. And then when it's time, it only speaks once. The weak rush to fill silence. They fidget. They explain. They overtalk, as if words could make them appear stronger. But the strong know better. They let silence speak for them. Because silence is not the absence of sound, it's the presence of control. And that control unnerves people. In negotiations, silence creates pressure. In confrontation, silence creates doubt. In leadership, silence creates focus. Even in chaos, a man who stays silent becomes the eye of the storm. And people instinctively look to the eye, not because it's the loudest, but because it's the calmest. Machiavelli knew that the ruler who speaks little is feared more than the one who speaks often. Why? Because silence leaves room for fear to grow. You see, fear doesn't need facts. It doesn't wait for clarity. It feeds on the unknown. And if your silence makes them wonder what you're thinking, what you're planning, what you're capable of, then you've already won half the battle without lifting a finger. In that silence, their imagination does the work for you. And imagination is always louder, darker, more powerful than anything you could say out loud. So why waste energy proving yourself to people who aren't even playing the same game? Let them talk. Let them reveal themselves. Let them burn out under the weight of their own noise. While you sharpen your strategy quietly, behind the curtain. Because when power finally moves, it doesn't warn. It doesn't explain. It just arrives. And by the time they realize what happened, it's already too late. They'll call it sudden, unexpected, ruthless. But that's only because they weren't paying attention to the silence. They mistook it for absence. They didn't realize silence is where real power gathers. Every second you stayed quiet, you were observing. Every pause, you were planning. And every moment they wasted on noise, you were getting stronger. That's how empires rise. Not with parades, but with precision. The loud ones will still be arguing, still defending, still trying to convince the world that they matter. But the silent one, he doesn't need the world to believe anything, because he already knows. And when he steps forward, finally, and speaks, not many words, just a few, the room will fall quiet, not out of respect, not out of fear, but because power has entered. And power doesn't compete with noise. It ends it. So keep your silence, protect it, sharpen it like a blade. Because one day, when it's time, and everyone's talking, guessing, doubting, you'll speak. Just once. And that one moment will echo louder than all their noise combined. Because true power doesn't speak often. It just speaks once, and never needs to repeat itself. And when that one moment comes, when your voice finally cuts through the noise, it won't sound like a shout. It will sound like truth. Like something that was always there, just waiting to be said by the right person. The room will shift. People will remember. Not because you demanded attention, but because you never asked for it to begin with. You moved with intention. You waited. You let the world underestimate you, while you mastered your role in silence. That's what they don't teach you. That silence isn't just about withholding words. It's about gathering power. It's about listening so closely that when you do speak, your words land like a hammer, measured, direct, and irreversible. And the world listens differently to those who are quiet by nature. Because when someone who rarely speaks finally does, people lean in. They know it matters. They know it's not empty. They know it means something is about to happen. And this is where Machiavelli's brilliance becomes clear. He didn't write for the loud. He wrote for the patient, for the strategist, for the one who understands that every word is a move, and silence is a checkmate waiting to happen. He knew that power isn't about constant motion. It's about the illusion of stillness. The predator doesn't roar before it strikes. It waits, hidden, calculated. It doesn't brag. It doesn't warn. It simply acts. And by the time the prey realizes what's happening, it's already over. So let others chase attention. Let them burn themselves out trying to be seen. You don't need to be seen. You need to be felt. And the only way to truly be felt is to move with weight, to speak with purpose, to stay quiet long enough that your voice carries gravity when it finally breaks the silence. This is not passivity. This is not fear. This is domination, disguised as discipline. It's the ability to hear everything and reveal nothing. To know exactly who you are and never feel the need to prove it. And here's the truth. The most powerful person in the room is never the one trying to convince you they are. It's the one who doesn't need to. So sit back, watch, learn. Let them fill the air with words. Let them perform. Because while they're showing off their power, you're building yours. And when the time comes, when the pressure's real, when the stakes are high, they'll crumble under their own noise. And you'll speak once, clearly, calmly, and everything will shift. That's not just Machiavellian. That's timeless. That's power in its purest form. Silent, certain, unshakable. You'll see it in their eyes. The moment they realize they spoke too soon, they mistook your silence for absence. They confused patience with passivity. And now they're caught in the space between your stillness and their own regret. By then it's not a conversation anymore. It's a reckoning. Because words once so cheap, so loud, suddenly feel small next to someone who never needed them to begin with. And you won't need to raise your voice. You won't need to explain. Your presence will be the explanation. All the time you spent in silence, they thought you were doing nothing. But you were watching, calculating, sharpening your mind like a blade against stone. They talked. You listened. They postured. You prepared. And now they're out of breath, while you haven't even started. This is what they never see coming. That real power isn't just about the moment of speaking. It's about everything you did in the silence before it. It's how you walk into a room with your energy already speaking for you. How you make decisions without a word, and people still feel the shift. How you carry yourself like someone who has nothing to prove, because you don't. And the world, it senses that, it respects that, it fears that, because most people are noise. But you are signal, you are clarity, deliberate, exact, unshakable. That's what Machiavelli understood. Not that silence is about hiding, but that silence is a filter, a weapon, a test. It separates the impulsive from the intentional, the weak from the wise, the loud from the truly powerful. And it's not about staying silent forever. No, it's about earning the moment to speak and owning it so fully that you never need to speak again. One word from you will hold more weight than 1,000 from anyone else, because you've mastered the one truth that every leader, every king, every strategist must eventually learn. The one who controls their voice, controls the room, controls the outcome, controls everything. So stay silent, stay sharp, let them wonder, let them talk, And when the world finally leans in, when the silence has built to its breaking point, when every eye turns to you, waiting for your move, that's when you speak. Not loudly, not often, just once. And that will be enough. That will be enough. Because in that one moment you'll redefine what power looks like. Not with force, not with volume, but with certainty. And the world will remember not just what you said, but how it felt when you said it. How everything went still, how the noise faded, how the balance shifted, wordlessly. This is what they all get wrong. They think power is something you show. But power, real power, is something you carry. It's invisible until it's undeniable. It's quiet until it's absolute. And when it arrives, it doesn't need to announce itself, because it's already known. You won't have to convince anyone. You won't have to argue. They'll see it in your eyes, in the way you move, in the way you pause before you speak, and in the silence that follows after. That silence will say everything. It will say, I don't need to prove myself. I don't need your approval. I don't need to be loud to be heard. I am what I am, and that is enough. Machiavelli didn't write for the crowd. He wrote for the one standing at the edge of it, the one watching, waiting, thinking, the one who knows the world is not conquered with noise, but with timing, with patience, with precision. So let them forget you. Let them overlook you. Let them believe that silence means nothing is happening. You'll thank them later. Because power is not earned through noise. It's built in the silence that noise tries to drown out. And when your time comes, when the world is loudest, when chaos surrounds you, you'll remain calm. Because you'll know something they don't. You'll know that power doesn't panic. Power doesn't rush. Power doesn't shout. Power waits. And when it finally speaks, it changes everything. One move, one decision, one word, and then silence again. Not the silence of hesitation, but the silence of finality, of impact, of dominance. That is the power Machiavelli spoke of. Not the kind that seeks attention, the kind that commands it without even trying. So speak less, move wisely, and let the silence do what noise never could. Let it win.